Welcome to TalkTickers. We cut through the noise of earnings calls to bring experienced investors like you the crucial insights.
That's right.
Today, we're diving deep into Genmab's first quarter 2025 financial results conference call. And, well, the headline, pretty strong growth across the board.
Absolutely. Genmab's Q1 2025 was marked by some really significant financial achievements.
Yeah.
We saw a substantial 19% increase in total revenue. That's pretty solid. And an impressive 62% surge in operating profit.
Wow, 62%.
Yeah. But maybe, most importantly, their recurring revenue. It jumped by 33%.
Okay.
And that now makes up, get this, 95% of their total income.
95%. That's a big shift towards stability, isn't it?
It really is. That shift towards a more stable revenue base is, I think, a key signal for long-term investors.
Definitely a strong foundation.
Yeah.
And further underscoring their financial health, Genmab kicked off a share buyback program up to 2.2 million shares.
Right, signaling confidence.
Exactly. Confidence in the future, value for shareholders. Plus, they're sitting on a hefty $3 billion in cash.
Over $3 billion, yeah. That's a nice cushion.
So beyond the high-level numbers, let's maybe unpack what's driving this performance, starting with their key products.
Sure. Well, the combined strength of Epkinly and Tivdak is a major factor here, no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Their sales collectively rose by a remarkable 56% year over year.
56%.
Yeah. And that contributed nearly 30% to Genmab's overall revenue growth. So it really highlights the increasing success of their own developed therapies.
Right. Epkinly in particular seems to be showing impressive momentum. Global sales hit $90 million. That's a 73% increase compared to last year.
Huge increase.
It seems like it's gaining traction globally, and the feedback from physicians has apparently been positive. What's really fueling that specific growth, do you think?
Well, a key driver is definitely the dual indication approval it's achieved. U.S., EU, and Japan.
Right.
It's approved for third line plus DLBCL, that's diffuse large B-cell lymphoma and follicular lymphoma.
Oh, okay.
So that broader applicability significantly expands its market potential. More patients can access it.
Makes sense. More patients eligible. Now, Tivdak also delivered pretty solid results, didn't it? $33 million in sales.
Yep. $33 million. That's up 22% over Q1 2024, driven mainly by strong and pretty stable performance in the U.S.
Okay.
But what struck me as particularly interesting, as you mentioned, was their independent commercialization efforts starting up in Japan and the EU.
Yeah, tell me about that. Why is that significant?
Well, that's a critical development. Getting approvals for Tivdak in both Japan and the EU, it really marks a significant step in Genmab's evolution. They're moving towards being a fully integrated pharmaceutical company.
I see.
By handling commercialization themselves in these key territories, they stand to capture a larger share of the profits, plus they get to build out their own commercial infrastructure. It's a big strategic move.
Yeah, it really signifies a shift in their whole business model. And of course, we can't overlook Darzalex, their partnered products.
Still a huge contributor.
Right. While it's not wholly owned, the net sales grew by around 20%, reaching over $3.2 billion.
Billion with a B.
Yeah. And that translates to a substantial $450 million in royalty revenue for Genmab.
Exactly.
So while their own products are clearly growing fast, these partnerships still provide a really significant financial backbone, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. The consistent performance of Darzalex provides that strong, reliable revenue stream.
Yeah.
And that, in turn, supports Genmab's ongoing investments in their own pipeline.
Right. It fuels the engine.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So looking at this commercial performance, it's pretty clear their strategy of developing and commercializing their own therapies is gaining real traction.
Okay, so that's the current picture. Now, what about the future growth drivers, the pipeline?
Yes, the late-stage pipeline. It looks potentially transformative, I'd say. You've got Epcoritamab, Rhina S, and Akasumi Mop, all showing, potential blockbuster-level sales down the line.
Blockbuster potential. Okay, those are the names investors should be watching closely then.
Definitely. Epcoritamab, in particular, seems positioned to become maybe a cornerstone therapy in bispecific lymphomas.
Bispecific lymphomas, okay.
Yeah, with anticipated peak sales potentially exceeding $3 billion. The market is very keenly awaiting the results of 3 expected phase 3 readouts by the end of 2026.
End of 2026. So that's a fairly near-term catalyst to keep an eye on.
Very much so. Positive data there could significantly alter Genmab's long-term revenue projections.
And staying in the lymphoma space, Genmab plans to seek FDA approval for Epcoritamab. That's the subcutaneous formulation of Epkinly, right?
Correct. Subcutaneous.
For second-line follicular lymphoma, this is based on positive top-line results from the Epcor FL1 trial. Full data coming later this year.
That's the plan. Full results at an upcoming medical conference in 2025. It seems they're moving pretty quickly on expanding Epkinly's reach.
Yeah, that proactive approach to regulatory filings, leveraging positive interim data, it underscores their confidence in the drug's efficacy, doesn't it?
It does. And their commitment to getting it to more patients faster.
Okay, another exciting prospect you mentioned is Rhina S, targeting ovarian cancer.
Yes, Rhina S. It's currently on track for a potential launch in 2027, with peak sales estimated to potentially exceed $2 billion.
$2 billion, okay. And they recently presented some updated data.
They did. At SGO 2025, in advanced ovarian cancer, it showed a promising 55.6% confirmed objective response rate. And this was in heavily pre-treated patients, which is notable.
What makes that particularly encouraging? Is it just the response rate?
Well, the rate itself is good, but what's also fascinating here is the efficacy signal they're seeing across different levels of folate receptor alpha expression.
Folate receptor alpha? Okay.
It's a protein often overexpressed in ovarian and endometrial cancers. Seeing efficacy across various expression levels suggests potentially broader applicability compared to therapies that might only work well in patients with high expression.
Ah, I see. Less restrictive.
Exactly. And the upcoming ASCO data in endometrial cancer is being described internally, apparently, as very compelling.
Very compelling. Okay, strong words.
Yeah, which could further validate its potential as maybe a best-in-class ADC and antibody-drug conjugate.
So Rhina S could potentially have a significant impact in multiple gynecological cancers then.
That's the hope. Then there's Akasumi Mop. This one's for non-small cell lung cancer.
Right, a huge market.
Huge market. Non-driver mutation second-line plus setting. It represents a potential $1 billion peak sales opportunity for Genmab.
Okay.
The phase 3 trial is progressing well. It's focused on the crucial endpoint of overall survival compared to the current standard of care, which is docetaxel.
And the benchmark there is about 11 months median survival, right?
Around that, yes.
Yeah.
Beating that 11-month median survival with docetaxel would be a major breakthrough in this setting.
Absolutely. Data expected when?
Second half of 2025. So that's another one to watch closely this year.
Yeah.
Demonstrating superior overall survival in this challenging treatment landscape would strongly position Akasumi Mop for commercial success.
Right. Okay, so with all this pipeline activity, R&D spend must be going up. What's the overall financial outlook for the rest of the year? Did they update guidance?
They actually maintain their 2025 financial guidance, still projecting double-digit growth in both revenue and operating profit.
Okay, holding steady.
Yeah. They anticipate total revenue in the range of $3.3 to $3.7 billion. That represents roughly 12% growth at the midpoint.
And recurring revenue, you highlighted that earlier.
Still strong growth expected there, too. Anticipated growth of 18% for the full year.
Nice.
And operating profit is projected to be between $895 million and nearly $1.4 billion. So a midpoint around $1.1 billion, which is a solid 16% year-over-year increase.
Seems like management is quite confident in their trajectory despite the R&D ramp up.
Yeah, this guidance reflects their expectations for continued strong performance from the commercial products, Epkinly, Tivdak, Darzalex royalties, and also factors in the progress of those late-stage trials. You mentioned the R&D spend. They do expect total operating expenses between $2.1 and $2.2 billion. And yes, R&D expenses are expected to ramp up in the latter half of the year. That's directly driven by advancing Epcoritamab, Rhina S, and Akasumi Mop through phase 3. Disciplined investment, they call it.
Makes sense. They also touched on strategic priorities, right? Expanding Epkinly and Tivdak, pushing the pipeline forward.
Exactly, and pursuing both organic and, importantly, inorganic growth opportunities. They did acknowledge the sort of geopolitical uncertainty out there.
Yeah, hard to ignore.
But they don't foresee a significant impact on their 2025 financial outlook, citing their strong financial position. They're also holding a virtual review on June 2nd for the Rhina S data from SGO and the upcoming ASCO presentation.
Good to know, so people can get a deeper dive on that specifically.
Yep. That robust cash reserve and their disciplined approach to capital allocation really gives them flexibility, to navigate potential bumps and maybe capitalize on strategic opportunities.
Speaking of opportunities, they mentioned the current macroeconomic environment might actually be favorable for business development from a buyer's perspective.
Yeah, that was an interesting point. They feel it's creating a potentially favorable landscape.
How so?
Well, with maybe some smaller biotech companies facing financial headwinds, funding challenges, Genmab, with its strong cash position, is potentially in a good spot to acquire promising assets, maybe late-stage candidates at attractive valuations.
Ah, okay. So they're actively looking.
They said they're actively evaluating several late-stage candidates. So yeah, this could be a smart way for them to accelerate growth and bolster that pipeline even further.
Interesting. Anything else on the strategic front? I thought I heard something about immunology.
You did. While oncology is definitely still the core focus, Genmab is showing, let's say, increasing interest in leveraging their antibody expertise in immunology as well.
Okay.
They have some preclinical programs, both wholly owned and partnered with Argents. And they're even in discussions with their partner AbbVie about potential immunology indications for Epkinly.
Wow. Okay. So that could open up a whole new therapeutic avenue for them long term.
Potentially, yes. It represents a significant long-term growth opportunity, allowing them to leverage their core science in a broader range of diseases.
What about updates on specific pipeline assets? Anything on Gen 1022?
Yes, Gen 22, that's their CD40x4 1BB bispecific antibody. They said a decision on its future development, the next steps, will be made in the second half of this year.
Okay. Dependent on what?
Pending further duration of response data, particularly, they mentioned, in the head and neck cancer frontline setting. They want to assess its competitive positioning in what's a pretty rapidly evolving therapeutic landscape there.
So taking a cautious, data-driven approach.
Exactly. They want to be sure it has a clear competitive advantage before committing to more significant investment.
Makes sense. And it sounds like they're open to using accelerated approval pathways more broadly, like they're doing with Epcoritamab in follicular lymphoma.
Yeah, they seem encouraged by their interactions with the FDA on that front, specifically mentioning Project Frontrunner.
Project Frontrunner, okay.
So yes, they seem open to exploring similar pathways for other programs if the data is compelling enough. It could help get important new therapies to patients faster.
Good to see. Lastly, there was a quick clarification on a trial timeline, wasn't there? The DLBCL-2 trial.
Right. The core DLBCL-2 trial for Epcoritamab. There was a bit of a discrepancy between their guidance for a 2026 readout and the later completion date listed on clinicaltrials.gov.
Okay.
They clarified that this is likely due to the event-driven nature of the study. Patient enrollment might have been faster than anticipated, potentially leading to earlier data availability than the formal completion date suggests.
Okay, so stick with the company guidance for now.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
It just underscores how dynamic these trials can be. Timelines can shift based on enrollment, event rates.
Got it. So summing all this up for our listeners, what's the key takeaway from this earnings call for experienced investors watching Genmab? Well, I think the first quarter of 2025 really solidifies Genmab's successful transition. They're clearly moving towards becoming a fully integrated biotech company. Their own developed and commercialized therapies, Epkinly and Tivdak, are gaining significant traction. They're driving substantial revenue growth and, importantly, reducing that historical reliance on partnered royalties like Darzalex.
And that robust growth in recurring revenue, now 95% of the total, that provides a much more predictable and stable financial outlook, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Much more stable footing.
Okay.
And then you look at the pipeline. The advancements across that late-stage pipeline, particularly with potential blockbusters like Rhina S and Epcoritamab, they represent significant future growth catalysts. Real potential for substantial long-term value creation there.
Plus, their disciplined financial management, you see it in the share buyback, the strong cash position, along with that proactive approach to business development. It kind of strengthens the investment case, wouldn't you say? I would. Overall, Genmab appears to be executing well on its strategy.
Yeah.
They seem well positioned for continued growth and success in the coming years.
All right, great summary. Now for our segment where we explore some, let's say, outside-the-box investment ideas. And remember, everyone, this is absolutely not financial advice, just stimulating some thought.
Disclaimer noted.
Okay, here's an outrageous but plausible trade idea for you. Given that very compelling early data buzz around Rhina S and endometrial cancer, and maybe hints of accelerated development, consider a long-dated call option on Genmab.
Okay, betting on Rhina S, basically.
Right. The thesis is that the upcoming phase 3 results do confirm best-in-class potential. That leads to significant upward revisions in peak sales estimates and maybe a substantial re-rating of the stock before its projected 2027 launch.
Interesting. How would you hedge that?
Well, to potentially mitigate risk, you could pair this with, say, a short position in a leading chemotherapy provider focused on gynecological cancers. The idea being potential market share erosion if Rhina S really lives up to the hype.
Okay, provocative. I've got one too.
Go for it.
How about this? Based on the strong early adoption of Epkinly in follicular lymphoma and that positive physician feedback, consider establishing a long position in Genmab.
Okay, focused on Epkinly expansion.
Exactly. The expectation here is that the upcoming supplemental BLA submission for second-line follicular lymphoma gets priority review and shows really compelling efficacy data. Data that potentially exceeds what analysts are currently forecasting for peak sales in just that indication.
Right, beating expectations and the hedge.
As a potential hedge, you might consider a short position in a direct competitor, someone with maybe a less differentiated profile in that same relapsed refractory follicular lymphoma treatment space.
Interesting angle. Again, folks, these are purely speculative ideas. Do not take them as investment recommendations. Always, always conduct your own thorough due diligence before making any investment decisions.
Absolutely critical.
Genmab's Q1 call definitely paints an interesting picture, though. Strong current performance, significant future potential. Lots to unpack.
Definitely. We encourage you, the listener, to delve into the full earnings call transcript if you want more detail, and definitely watch out for those upcoming data presentations, especially for Rhina S.
Yeah, those will be key. What stood out to you the most from this deep dive? We'd love to hear your thoughts if you want to reach out.
Thank you for joining us on TalkTickers. We look forward to bringing you another insightful analysis of a crucial earnings call very soon.
Until our next deep dive, keep those investment theses sharp.